Thank you, Senator
Thank
Van
you all for your
Hollen.
testimony.
So I want to see if we can look at another aspect of this. The House Republicans have decided to use the debt ceiling to hold our government and our economy hostage. They are demanding massive cuts in government spending, investments in the American economy, investments in American workers, or they won't allow the United States to pay the debts that it has already incurred. You know, a little like running up a bill on the credit card and then declaring that your new budget plan is we're not going to pay the bill on the credit card. So you have all said uniformly, that's a terrible idea. We cannot default on our debt. But the Republicans, the MAGA Republicans in the House, have put us in this between a rock and a hard place. They said, okay, we will raise the debt ceiling, but only if you will agree to massive spending cuts. And it seems that the point of these massive spending cuts is acute pain. And don't take my word for it. Take Donald Trump's, who blamed Republicans' poor showing in the midterms on Americans not feeling, quote, the full gravity of the pain our nation is going through, but expressed confidence that by 2024, it will be, quote, much worse. So let's talk about what it would mean if those Republican cuts went through. Dr. Zandi, you're the chief economist at Moody's. I know you're testifying on your own behalf here, but you're the chief economist at Moody's and one of the authors of a new report that analyzes the impact on the economy from massive spending cuts being demanded by Republicans. So we've talked about what happens if there's breach. Now we're talking about these massive spending cuts. So let's start out. Tell us a little bit about the kinds of cuts we're talking about here.
Well, as you say, they're massive. First, I should say this is a bit opaque because it's not like the House Republicans have put forward a very explicit plan. We're kind of piecing this together and listening to what's being said in the House. And my sense is that they're proposing to so-called balance the budget 10 years from now through spending cuts. Taxes are off the table. And of course, Social Security and Medicare are also off the table. But if you do the arithmetic, and here I'm just doing simple arithmetic, it's $16 trillion in cumulative cuts over the 10-year period.
Okay.
So just divide by 10, that's 1.6 trillion per annum. That's 6% of GDP. That gives you a sense of context.
Okay, so $16 trillion over 10.
Can I say, Senator, just a point of interest? I mean, maybe only economists would appreciate this, but that's a static estimate, right? That doesn't account for the economic consequences of those cuts on the economy and what that means for revenue spending. And so it's not going to be 16 trillion. It's going to be a much bigger number than 16 trillion. But let's just say 16 trillion.
So those are in the straight cuts, just doing plain arithmetic on what the Republicans have said, without accounting for how much GDP goes down cumulatively in the middle of that. And just so everybody understands on this, is that the type of cut that the government could achieve by just not filling new job openings and doing a little belt tightening?
No. There's a number of ways you could get there, but the most, I guess, I hate to use the word reasonable way to get there would be you would have to effectively eliminate all non-defense discretionary spending, all the things that you were just mentioning earlier, housing, food inspection, everything related to transportation. You can see all the problems we're having in the airline, on the airlines and the rail that would be affected. Housing, healthcare, science, NASA, everything, aid to overseas. This is a long list of things. But also Medicaid. The Medicaid program would also have to be effectively eliminated to achieve that $16 trillion in cut over a 10-year period. So this is not just some jobs. This is, a lot of what I think American people expect from the American government. These are services that have been provided since the beginning of time, and they rely on them.
Okay. So when you take all that into account, that is, the size of the cuts and the programs you'd have to cut to achieve a reduction in spending of that size, you've done an analysis of the impact on the economy. Can you tell us what that would do to the economy over the next decade?
Sure, and of course, I'm making a lot of assumptions about timing and how this would be implemented and what exactly would be cut. But in the scenario that I articulate in gory detail in the paper that was released today, it would result in in the near term in a very severe recession. It'd be throughout 2024, so it'd be more than a year long. Just for context, the typical recession since World War II is 10 months, so this would be longer than that. The economy would lose 2.6 million jobs. The unemployment rate would rise to as high as 6%. So it would be it's not the financial crisis, but it would be a very meaningful hit to the economy in the near term. It would be a significant recession.
Okay, so in the near term, we're talking about a severe recession, and we're talking about loss of jobs?
2.6 million.
2.6
at the peak of the job loss.
At the peak would be what it looks like overall. And anything about what happens to GDP over this 10-year period?
Well, that was just the near term. So
yes.
These are cuts through a 10-year period.
Right.
So let's take it out 10 years from now, the end of the budget horizon in 2023. The GDP, that's the value of all the things that we produce, all the goods and services we produce, would be 2.8% less than it would have been if we just did a clean debt limit increase and there would be no impact on the economy. So that's the counterfactual. And just for a little bit of context there, I think you said that in your opening remarks, but just to strike that
which
point
I'd
home.
gotten from your report.
Oh, there you go. Okay,
that's why they sound.
I thought you did. I thought you did the arithmetic yourself. But that's a little more than a kind of a typical year of GDP growth. It's as if the economy could have stood still. Of those 10 years, one of those years it just stood still. So, quite significant. And employment would still be roughly a million, not quite a million, less than it would have been in the counterfactual with a clean debt limit increase.
Okay, so let me just push this on through. So we're talking about 2.6 million jobs lost in the near term, 1 million over time. 10 years out, we'd be down 1 million jobs.
It's just taking two different points in time. At
right.
the maximal impact in the near term, it's 2.6 million. By the end of the 10-year horizon, I think you're down 950K, something like that, but close to 1 million.
So when you take all that into account, I think I've got my thing here. What we're looking at is the Republicans these House Republicans can either throw us into an immediate recession and cost us about 1 million jobs in the short term if they do a debt default. But if instead we cave in and go with the kinds of cuts they're talking about, we get a severe recession, we get about 2.5 million jobs lost in the near term, and 1 million jobs kind of over time, year by year, off into the future. So this sounds like they've really got us caught where the Republicans are trying to drive this. On the one hand, we don't want to see a debt default. But on the other, I think what you're telling us is the consequences of the kinds of cuts that the Republicans are advancing would also have a severe impact on the economy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward that, defaulting on the debt, as we all have discussed, is cataclysmic, depending on just how cataclysmic depends on exactly what scenario unfolds. But the alternative of engaging in these massive cuts in spending over this 10-year horizon would also be, quite devastating, to the economy. There's neither is I think a viable option.
Good. I appreciate that. And I think that takes us back to where we started with all five of you, and that is we need to raise the debt ceiling without conditions. Thank you.